Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to another edition of Women's History Month, #Choose the Challenge. I'm honored and privileged to have our special guest, Dr. Carolyn Stephens, here with us today. Dr. Stephens, how's it going?
It's going quite well. I'm very excited about being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being a part of this. I'm Luana Bradford. I am the visionary and co-founder of Celebrate You Women Embracing Wellness. And what we want to talk about today is what it means when we're celebrating women in history. But before we get into that discussion, let's talk about you and what's going on in the world of Dr. Carolyn Stephens. What's new and exciting happening?
Oh boy. Well, so just so I'll let all of our viewers know, I'm located here in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a family therapist by trade. 90% of my women clients are 90% of my clients are women. So for me, this is very personal. I'm excited about it. In terms of new and exciting, I am a media channel owner where I get an opportunity to provide a platform for women to use their voice and their talents. And so that's kind of what's happening with me. In addition to that, I'm an author. I've authored 2 books and getting ready to author 2 more. So that's what's going on in the world of Dr. Carolyn.
Fantastic. And Carolyn, I know that you also help other authors become, or people who inspire to be authors to become authors. Is that correct?
Yeah. That is correct. Absolutely.
Fantastic. So if someone wants to know how to reach you to get a little bit more information on how to become an author, how might they be able to reach out to you?
They can actually go to my website, which is www.drcarolyn.live. People can reach me on Facebook. I engage with a lot of people on Facebook. They can go to my therapy page, which is Dr. Carolyn. They can go there and reach me, or Carolyn Stephens. Those ways they can reach me.
Fantastic. So let's just get right into it. This discussion about Women's History Month. So we are celebrating women, and it's a global wave of celebration. All around the world, we are celebrating women, and we're celebrating the shoulders of the giants who we stand on, and we're also celebrating each other as we journey in our lives, as we are building history day to day. So when we think about that, what does that mean to you? What does celebrating women's history mean to you, and why is it so important?
I think this is very profound. For me, this is such a glorious feeling. It makes me feel very glad to be a woman, especially in 2021. I'm excited. I've always celebrated women, and that's the basis of my work is celebrating women. And the fact that we can take this opportunity to reflect on the women from our past, those who spearheaded the women's suffrage movement and the women's liberation movement, and all of those women who did wonderful things, took chances for us. And we sit here today being able to enjoy the freedoms and the liberty that we can enjoy today because of them being courageous, willing to take the challenge, using their voice so that we can have a right to do the things that we do today. So this is, for me, this is an awesome celebration. This is not only a celebration of women, but just a celebration of life, a celebration of equality, a celebration of what this country stands for. So this is awesome in so many ways, Luana.
I love that. So the theme this year, the global international theme, is #Choose to Challenge. What does that mean when you're thinking about #Choose to Challenge, and how have you been challenging the status quo? How are you raising the bar? How are you pushing back on that envelope?
When I think about the #Choose to Challenge, the very first thing I think about is challenging myself, stepping further outside of the box and being willing to take new challenges, being willing to go into different directions and do different things. So I think about that internally first. For Carolyn, what does that mean for me? Being willing to just step outside into to do other things. That's the first thing I think about when I think about the hashtag choose to challenge. For me, I choose to challenge women every day to live in their authenticity. And I know that that may sound really simple for some people, but for women, that has been our challenge, is to be able to feel free to live in our authentic selves and to be able to be accepted by other women. That's so super important. So I challenge women to live in their authenticity, to be able to feel free in the skin that they're in, to be able to know that you are accepted, that you are loved. And I do that through my therapy practice. I do that through the platforms that I provide for authors and artists and mentors and coaches. And I push them and I challenge them to say, hey, you don't have to follow the status quo. You don't have to live by a pattern. Make your own pattern. What works for you? Take the challenges that you have encountered in life, and now take those challenges and make them work for you. Use your voice and let other women know that it's okay, that we're going to have challenges, but we can take those challenges and now we can write our own story in the way that we want to write it with our own voices. And so that's what I do every day, to challenge myself and to challenge other women.
And Dr. Carolyn, I love what you said. You said you first start with you. And that is so important, because often, we'll rise up and we say, we want to change the world. But if you haven't done the inner work, right? If you don't
Yes.
even know who you are
Yes.
and what you most value, then what type of influence and impact are you really going to have? So I love that you paused and sat there and said, first, I got to start here. Like Michael Jackson said, I got to look at the man in the mirror, make
Right.
that change, and then
That's absolutely right. One of my favorite quotes, Luana, is by Gandhi, and he said it so simply, that I must become the change that I desire to see. And so I always, and as a clinician, I'm always going to say, start with you first. The change comes with you first. And I believe that as we evolve and that as we change, just change in itself is not just an action, but it's an energy. And I say that in the metaphysical sense of the word, because as we change, then something changes in the atmosphere and it becomes contagious. And as we change, then other women, they have a desire to change. That sparks them. They say, hey, if Dr. Carolyn can change, then I can do it. And if Dr. Carolyn is okay with herself and she feels good about the skin that she's in, then hey, then I can feel good about the change that I am. And so that's the reason why it's so important, especially for those who are leaders, that we take the leap, because we're not only taking the leap for ourselves, but we're taking the leap for other women. And I believe that when we break the ceiling, that it creates a hole for other women to come through. So that's why we've got to be barrier breakers. We've got to be daring. We've got to be willing to take those chances and take those risks and do that, so that all of our sisters can be able to take that same chance and those leaps.
I love that, and we know that the world, the U.S. is one of the greatest nations out there, and we are a superpower, and the world is watching. The world is watching what we as women are doing right now.
Oh yeah.
And so we, just from our day-to-day living, how we're treating each other, can impact what's happening in another country and can impact the future generation. So I think it's incumbent upon us to get it right.
Absolutely. Abs- absolutely. And even in that, that's very profound thought that you said it, get it right. Because somebody might say, well, what actually is does get it right means? What does that mean? I think when I hear that, when I hear get it right, is for us to for us to say, listen, um, as women, we have oftentimes made some mistakes as women because we were afraid. We lived in fear. So I know that I'm a mother. I know that I raised two daughters who are now out in this world. And oftentimes, because I was afraid, because I was dealing with my own fears and inhibitions, I would say, as a woman, because of what society told me I could do, I couldn't do. And sometimes in raising daughters, we sometimes, impose those same fears on our daughters. So I think that it is imperative that we get it right within ourselves and say, hey, you know what society told me, everything they told me wasn't always right, you know? So I've got to be willing to do something different so that I don't pass that down to my daughters, so I don't pass that down to other young women that are coming up. I don't want to see women stifled. I don't want to see women afraid to be colorful. And so I've got to make that step first to say, hey, it's okay for you to be the beautiful you that you are. It's okay for you to use your voice. Women don't have to sit in silence anymore. There was a time that we felt like we had to, but now's not that time. Now we can use our voices, and it's okay for us to I'll say, for us to roar. It's okay for us. As a matter of fact, the world needs for us to roar.
Yes. When you were saying that, the song that went through my head is back in the 70s, Helen Reddy. She was
Yes.
so prophetic in saying, I am woman, hear me roar.
Oh yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
let's go into that roar with the vote. So in 1920, women received the right to vote. We're now in the 101st year of celebrating that. When you hear about that, what does that mean to you? And talk a little bit more about the importance of our voice and rising up in ensuring that we have what we need for that equality, so that our children have choices that maybe we weren't able to have.
I mean, giving us the right to vote is so very powerful. When you think about the role of the woman, we shape the home, we shape the children, the generations that go forward. And so giving us the right to vote was needful. Our voice in terms of how this country moves forward is needful. There would be no way that this country could make or could have made the progress that it has made without our voice, without us saying, listen, we need to be a part of the political system. We need to be a part of what happens when it comes to health, when it comes to finance, when it comes to housing, because these are the areas where we are. And so our voice definitely needed to be there. And so I'm so thankful for the pioneers that said, hey, we're going to raise our voices because we have a right to voice our opinion, to say what happens in the country that we live in and we work in, and we have helped to shape. We should not be slighted. Our voices should not be negated. So that was very profound that happened. It needed to happen, and it still needs to continue to happen, that as women, that we are not left out of anything that is going to shape this country.
Exactly. And one thing I want to add to that, and I think it's so important for individuals to realize, we paint history, or history is painted depending on who's holding the paintbrush, right? They let us see a certain side of the lens. But the one thing we talk about the suffragettes, but we forget all the people that were part of that conversation. Your African American women, your Native American women, your Hispanic women, your Asian American women. It was not just white America out there, in their big hats making this happen. But yet, that's what history tends to show us. And I think collectively now, as women, when we're looking to move that needle of change, we have to make sure in our voice that all sides of history are painted on the canvas of life. Dr.
Wow,
Stephens.
that is profound. And if I may say, speaking on behalf of African American women, having the right to vote, here's the thing when it comes to Black women is that in terms of liberation, we never really needed that because we've always kind of, as a culture of women, we've somewhat always been liberated. In antiquity, we ruled in government, so we were used to doing that. It's just a part of our culture. But I think the beauty of Black women, which is not often talked about, is that we came alongside of women of other cultures that were really experiencing those problems in terms of being liberated as a woman. See, our problem was a civil rights issue. But even with that issue, and that's just the nature of women, we're nurturing. We have the innate ability to say, hey, even though that's not really specifically my problem, but as a woman, I want to come alongside of you to help you fight because I'm a nurturer and because I care about that. And oftentimes I think as Black women, we're not really given that kind of credit that we have come along the other side of especially European women to say, hey, we realize that this is mainly your struggle in terms of liberation as women, but we want to come alongside of you and help you fight that fight. Black women, we've always had a voice. We'll use our voice whether somebody tell us to use it or not. I mean, that's just the way that we're made up. But I think that we had not been given credit for the fact that we came alongside other women and to help them to use their voice. You see, we have really helped to spearhead that and to pilot that the women's lib movement. Like I said, I don't think we're given enough credit for that. But we said, hey, we use our voices every day, but we're not satisfied until all women have that right to use their voice.
Yes, I love that. We have a few more minutes before this wonderful time is ending. I'd like to turn it over to you to talk now about that woman who has made the biggest impression on your life and who continues to shape and mold you.
Yes, when you asked me that, I was so torn because I had an absolutely fabulous mom who has transitioned now from this life. So I decided that I would think about what I would call a surrogate mom or a spiritual mom, and I've always known her as a Sister Ida. That's just what I called her, and Ida came along she's about almost 80 now, but she came along in a time of my life where I needed to know who I was as a woman. And she took me alongside of her and she prayed with me endlessly, listened to me endlessly. But there's many stories I have about Ida that I could tell. We won't have enough time. But I will say that what Ida gave to me as a woman, she did not let me have an excuse. She never allowed me to use, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough talent, I'm a woman. She never allowed me to feel sorry for myself. Irregardless of whatever's going on, still do it, Carolyn. Regardless of whatever challenge you're having, still do it. And so I accredit much of my strength as a woman, as a leader, to her. That is what she gave me. She gave me time. She nurtured me. She didn't coddle me. There is a difference.
Mhm.
She didn't do that. She didn't coddle me. She didn't. She saw something in me. She would sit me down at her kitchen table, and she would say, Carolyn, I see you way in the future, and you're going to be something great. Even when I didn't see that about myself, but she always saw it, and so she always dealt with me from my potential. She never dealt with me where I was in the moment, but she always dealt with me according to my potential. So she was hard on me sometimes. I didn't like it sometimes, but that's a 25-year relationship, and just about anywhere I go that she's able to travel to. Everybody that knows me personally, they know about Sister Ida. She's always gonna be there. Even if I have to roll her in a wheelchair, and she's just always gonna she's just always gonna be there. And having her, knowing that she's in my life and seeing her face and knowing that she's praying for me and rooting me on, it means everything to me. So that's what I think about when I think about the woman who has influenced me the most.
That's such a beautiful story, and it's so heartwarming to know that here is someone, no matter where she is, if she is able, she's physically present, supporting you. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's a good feeling. You turn around and you see, that person there. It's like, yes,
Oh
you
yeah.
feel like she's like the wind beneath your wings, right?
Absolutely, and I think that's important that we show up in each other's lives. Not just talk about it, but to actually say, "Hey, I'm here. I'm here." Even if I don't have a whole lot to say, presence is powerful.
Yes.
Presence is very powerful. Just to be able to know that somebody you love and somebody who believes in you is just there, that means a whole lot. And that's what she has been for me. She always, she's a little older, so she always say, Carolyn, I don't understand everything about these books and this Facebook stuff you do and all of that. That's just beyond me. But hey, I can be there. I'm there for you. Okay. So she has a sense of humor in that way, because she'll tell you, I barely know how to text. I did teach her how to text and use the phone and text, but she says, I don't understand all the stuff that you do, and that's not important that I understand it, but just the fact that you're doing it means the world to me, and you just keep on doing what you're doing. So yeah, just the
That's wonderful. Well, Dr. Carolyn, we are almost out of time, so I want to ask you: is there any parting words that you'd like to leave with our listening audience, and again, remind them how they can get in touch with you?
I'd like to say to our viewers, to all of the women that are listening, I would like to say to you that your voice matters. Out of all of the millions and millions of voices that are being heard, and certainly there are very powerful and profound women who we hear their voices every day, but it won't be the same without your voice. I want to encourage you that I know that life brings us challenges and battles and different things, and maybe your voice has gotten dim and you feel like my voice is not important. I want to tell you that your voice means everything. So you need to use your voice in the way that the creator wants you to use your voice. It's important that we hear from you. It's important that we hear your story and your words. Nobody else should tell your story. You tell your story in your words. You may feel like you're not the greatest public speaker or what have you, but that doesn't matter. Use your voice. It matters, and we need to hear it. And I want to encourage all of you today that your voice, it truly does matter.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And how can they reach you?
You can reach me again by going to my website at www.drcarolyn.live. You can reach me on Facebook by going to my therapy page at Dr. Carolyn Stephens, or you can reach out to me on Facebook at Carolyn Stephens. I'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic. Dr. Carolyn, thank you again so much. I appreciate always connecting with you and for you being a part of this very important message that we're trying to get around the world.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
And to our listening audience, we have just concluded another wonderful episode of Women's History Month, hashtag Choose the Challenge with Dr. Carolyn Stephens. And as we always say and celebrate you, love yourself, embrace yourself, and whatever you do, always celebrate you. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.